This isn't just kumbaya talk. Purpose drives impact. Looking to empower up your day? Tune in to Evolve Together with Empower People. Join me, host and Empower People founder Tiffany Joy Greene, MBA, as I bring dynamic leaders, change makers, and entrepreneurs to share their journeys, challenges, and successes while driving their purpose to drive positive impact and empower people. Empower People is an organization that provides education, connection, and support to mission and purpose-driven leaders to drive positive impact and empower people. Join Empower People today. What are you waiting for? We even have a free membership. That's right, free. Visit www.empowerpeople.org. That is MPWRPeople.org. You can also visit us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Evolve together. Welcome to Evolve Together with Empower People, the show that brings you inspiring stories, expert insights, and transformative advice, and hopefully a few laughs. I always make that part of the goal. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, founder of Empower People. I also have with me Chris Mayfield. You have not seen Chris in a while. He is here, folks. So he emerges. Each week, we dive into topics that are rooted in how purpose drives business and positive impact. Join us as we connect with dynamic guests, explore innovative ideas, and empower you to evolve and thrive in every aspect of your life. That's a low bar, I know. Stay tuned, because together we can achieve greatness. Let's evolve together. To learn more about Empower People, you can visit empowerpeople.org. That's MPWRpeople.org. No, we are not a radio station. We are an organization. And you can find us on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and now TikTok. Don't forget, hashtag Empower People. So let's get on with the show. Chris, what are we talking about today?
I believe what we're talking about. Now, there's no telling where we'll end up, but I think where we're starting is events and how they support or connect to purpose, your organizational or individual purpose. Because I think people do events sometimes, and by events we're talking like walks and runs or bake sales or whatever, right? So events because they feel good, and or they think they're going to get some community kudos for having an event, right? So, but how should we really think about events so that we maximize the return on our investment, and make our events meaningful and timely. So I think that's what we're talking about. So let's see where it ends up.
That is exactly right, Chris. I'm glad you passed the quiz with flying colors. One of the things when we're talking about events, I'm going to start off, if you don't mind, Chris, you're going to be like, wow, this is going sideways. We are talking about this topic, though. But I'm going to talk about it in a personal sense because I feel like this is a really good analogy. You can disagree with me, and let's make the show more entertaining by you disagreeing with me. But I think the weddings are a really good example, right? People getting married, right? When you have a wedding, what is the purpose of a wedding? Is it to get married and to say this is going to be the partner for the rest of my life? And what does that look like? Or is it the ceremony and the reception? And I think we can argue that a lot of events, wedding events, have lost sight of the purpose, right? So the event becomes the focus, and the purpose of why that even existed in the first place, why are we doing this, gets lost in the flowers, the cake, the music, the theme. This is a destination wedding. I mean, all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
All of the stuff. And then some people, they even when they're, and I'm doing this because it helps you think about purpose and event, right? Because this is something a lot of us can relate to, whether you've been married or not. You know somebody who's been married, right? Maybe you know somebody who's still married. So sometimes I've heard people say, well, I want to have this big event, meaning the wedding and the reception, because I want the gifts. I want the gifts, right?
Which you can get without the ceremony.
Which you can get without the ceremony. So again, it's all about what is the point of, again, the wedding and all of the event, the ceremony, all of that. is the point of unifying two people to share a life. And they get to dictate what that looks like, right? That can look
Sure.
different for each couple, but there's a lot that goes into that, right? That's the real purpose of the event. The rest is a nice to have, right? If you want it, you can have it, but it doesn't, that's not the purpose. So if people, and how many people just in this podcast right now know somebody who may have got married for the trappings of the event and not necessarily for the marriage and what that really meant? I do.
Oh yeah, of course. It's funny though, in the military background, uh, when you have, and it kind of exposes kind of the real purpose of a marriage, right? In modern society, right? Not historical when people first started getting married in public so that it was witnessed and all of that, right? So, of course, we were much smaller communities, but now marriages uh, are as often about getting health insurance or tax deductions or those mechanical material things that are associated with getting married. So uh, you're absolutely right. Is if you take out the wedding dress and the cake and the honeymoon and you're still you're still what you're left with is that legally binding document that says you're married and you're now kind of responsible for each other, right? And you're entering this life now in a shared risk capacity, also shared reward. But so you're right. The idea of a wedding is purely now emotional and not in every case, right? We can't
No, no, no.
talk in that general terms, but my guess would be by and large they're emotional, right? We want our friends and family around us, but at the end of the day, when all of that dust settles, what you're left with is this legally binding social contract that you would have had regardless of whether you spent thousands of dollars on a wedding or not.
And so
Uh,
all that time and energy that's spent in the celebration, how much time and energy is being spent in why are we doing this?
yeah,
And
yeah,
I don't mean
no,
that in
yeah,
a
no,
negative way, but
no,
legitimately,
no,
why
yeah,
are we doing this? Because, that's the difference between a marriage that ends in statistically, most divorces occur within the first 7 years of marriage. So that's a big difference between is this marriage going to last past seven
yeah,
years? Are we going to be the 50-year-old or 50, have that 50th anniversary or more? Like, because you got to really evaluate what is the point? What is the purpose? And celebrating is a great thing. I'm not saying people shouldn't do it, just in case somebody's like reading into what I'm saying. That is not what I'm saying. Teach their own however you want to celebrate it. But the point, the purpose of it is this. So it's like, so let's take that, Chris. Help me take that analogy and bring it to business, whether for profit or non-profit.
sure. So when we think about a business, right? And hopefully, the business has decided what their purpose is, right? And not, yeah, hopefully, not uh, our place to tell you whether your purpose is good or bad,
Right.
or that your purpose is worthy of supporting. But uh, under uh, under purpose is a series of strategies, right? Uh, Usually an organization would have one, two, maybe on the outside, three long-term strategies that they're trying to implement. So, for example, hey, I want to start conducting more business online, or I want to move into this new market geographically or economically, or I want to grow my staff with this particular skill set because that's where the future is headed, right? So under our purpose is being served by some strategy moves. And I think that is where a lot of people fail to tie events to the strategy, right? They want to tie an event to a purpose, which is great, but if it's not supporting your growth strategy, you're kind of wasting your time, right? It's like the seven-tiered cake at a wedding. If you're uh, you got a seven-tiered cake, but but did you get a life insurance policy, right? So so I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark is, are the events that you're planning, that you're looking to do, support one of your strategic initiatives? If the answer is directly, right? Um, and because under our strategic initiatives, we should have these blocking and tackling steps, right? These things that then roll up to support our strategy. So an event should be one of those block and tackling things. Shouldn't be a purpose all its own. So is your block and tackling event supporting a strategy which then supports a purpose? So it's kind of a tiered approach. And if you put events through that filter, what you end up with is a higher return on your investment.
Well, and I'd like to take that. I like what you're saying there, and I agree. And I think the other component to that is how many times have you witnessed a business, again, for profit or nonprofit, who's doing an event for the sake of doing an event? Um, and it's because they consciously are aware, like they think, they think, I have to do it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have a choice. This is the way the game is played, and this is just what we have to do. That is not actually accurate, right? Like, if you look at the nonprofit space, we'll use nonprofits. Like, nonprofits get a lot of times trapped in that event space because, well, that's the way we've been doing it for 50, 60 years. So we got to keep doing it. It's a tradition. We got to keep the tradition alive. But is that tradition supporting the purpose? Because at the end of the day, people want impact, right? So does the event, like, I'm going to take what you said and I'm going to take it. I agree with what you said, but I'm going to add a key word here. Is like if you're doing an event, how does that event impact the impact that you want to have? Because purpose should be equaling impact. Whatever impact you want to have is your purpose. So how does that event foster that? If you're having an event and the whole point, then I'll use a nonprofit example. The nonprofit has the event because, well, we're trying to generate funds. It's a fundraising event to help foster the purpose. But if at the end of the day you hold that event and the funds you raised breaks even with the event, did you propel your impact?
Well, and it could be exponentially worse, right? So let's say you're a small nonprofit or even a medium-sized nonprofit, and you have a very loyal donor base, right? You have those people that you can always pick up the phone and you can call, and they're going to give you some money. So you get this big idea, you're going to have an event. So you call those donors and say, "Hey, come out and support our event." Well, they were already going to support you, right? So they were already going to give you money. So let's say, yeah, they're happy to come out and support your event and write you the same check they would have written you without the event, right? So now your return on your investment or your relationship or your fostering your investors has just diminished, right? Because uh, you would have received, most likely would have received that event. You most likely would have received that money without the event. So unless you're framing the event as a donor appreciation, right? Uh, that's a whole, but that's a different type of event. So uh, yeah, you may actually harm yourself fundraising by not properly uh, understanding how the event again ties back to your strategy, which then supports your purpose. So agree 100%. Would
And
I have gotten the money to begin with? Is this going to generate new revenue? If the answer is maybe, maybe you should not have an event.
and I can't tell you how many folks I know, like different organizations that'll hold the event and they actually lose money.
Yeah.
And they'll say, but it was worth it because we can't put a number to the brand awareness we got. Well, there's ways to get awareness that are much more cost effective. And when we look at cost, we're not just talking about the the money it costs for the food and the music and the entertainment. I'm talking about like all that time and energy that was spent planning that event, which that effort could have been somewhere else that would have a bigger
Yeah,
impact.
the conversation I would have if you came to me and said, "Hey, I want to have this event. We're going to invite all of our donors." One, that would be a red flag for me, and two, I would create community awareness. Right? My What I would tell you is, are there better, not necessarily cheaper, but are there better ways in which you can uh, gain community awareness in a way that is measurable? Right? So when you think about radio ads or TV ads or even print ads, you can measure those effectiveness, right? A million uh, print ads go out in a coupon thing, right? And you get 100 phone calls. Well, you know how effective that is. When you do this arbitrary community engagement event and you claim that the results aren't measurable, you're claiming that because maybe you didn't think all the way through, uh, what do I want out of this event in terms of new engagements or new donations? And is this the most effective way to do it? So if the answer is still yes, then the answer is yes, right? But don't say, or I would discourage people to say, well, it's not measurable. Well, yeah, it is. It is measurable. You just don't have the mechanism in place to measure it.
Another example of an event I would like to bring up because we were talking about nonprofits, now I want to kind of shift to for profit. So they're going, hey, is this about me too? Um, how many businesses will continue to hold, let's say, a holiday party because that's also a tradition, right?
Yep.
Now, some organizations that make sense. If it's the purpose, if it's the culture, it's good. In other organizations, the employees feel like you're forcing me to spend more time with you. I don't want to spend more time with you. I spend enough time with you. And I'd much rather see the money that you're spending on this party in my own paycheck. So again, so thinking about it from a purpose standpoint, if you're saying, part of your purpose, if we'll use this example for a small business, is to make sure that all your employees have a good, solid salary income that so that they're and their families can have a good quality of life. Like it's a really good income. But you are taking away from those paychecks for a party. Is it supporting the purpose?
And that I on the surface, and here comes the disagreement, right? On the
Yay!
surface, yeah, on the surface, I don't disagree with you, right? That money that we spend on these special occasion parties, Christmas, company anniversaries, celebrating kids going back to school. uh, yeah, they do use capital or they do use money, right? But that does not always exclude pay raises and
Correct. It doesn't always.
right and increased benefits. So uh, if you are looking at your strategy, right, back to strategy and say one of my strategic initiatives is I want to uh, increase, hold steady, not lose uh, folks because of a pay deficit to the market, right? If and or I want to increase my retention by being on the top of that pay band for whatever market I'm in. So if you are achieving that strategy already, and then you have this party and you've made the decision, this is cash I can afford to spend or credit I can afford to use, and still achieve my top line strategy. But I would caution people to say, I'm going to have a Christmas party and that's going to improve my morale or it's going to improve my retention because it's simply not, right? To your point, people are going to say, well, you know, my friend who works for company XYZ right down the road makes 25% more than I do. And here we are having a stupid party that I know they're paying a lot of money for, right? And how come they just won't give me that money? And now I don't even want. You just ruined Christmas because, right? Because you're making this retention strategy error even worse by doing what you think is the right thing by having a holiday party.
Well,
So
and the other thing you were talking, so when as you're talking about the holiday party, um, I like to watch movies, and so it makes me think of the movie Second Act with Jennifer Lopez. If you haven't seen that movie, I don't think it was rated well, but I liked it. I liked it. And in that movie, I'm not going to get into all the details because that'll take up 15 minutes in and of itself. But Jennifer Lopez's character basically gets a job. She gets in the like the C-suite level, right? She's a consultant, but she's working with the C-suite level, and they have a holiday party. And the holiday party is only for the executives, and all the executives get to come up. And then this one guy, she invites this one guy. He goes, we're not allowed. I'm not special like the rest of you guys. I don't get to like." So if your purpose in your company is to say we all matter, like regardless of the position you have, you're integral to this company, and you want it. That's part of the purpose, and that's part of the culture you're setting up. I guess it's say I think. Let's see if Chris disagrees with me, folks. I don't think having a holiday party set up like that's a good idea.
well, I do disagree with you. And here's
Yes,
why.
more excitement.
Another two disagreements in one session. So here's why. There are companies out there today uh, that have an operating style of churn and burn, right? And they will chew up employees knowingly, uh, chew up employees at the low and mid level, uh, hire them, train them quickly, expecting them to leave quickly, and just wash and repeat that. And for them, having this executive party, which is the people that you hope to retain more because, right, then that makes a lot of sense. If that's your strategy, where you're going to enter and exit people at the bottom and middle as quickly as you can because you don't want to increase your cost over time, giving people raises and that kind of stuff, uh, then maybe that makes sense for your strategy. It's not a good look. It may help you lose people faster, but if that is your strategy, that's a very effective way to do it, right? Uh, so, but uh,
Touche.
but I do know people that is their strategy,
Mm-hmm.
uh, particularly when at the low and middle end, uh, the tasks are not complex, right? So they don't care, if your training time is a few hours, measured in hours, not days or weeks, then it might make sense for you to have a churn and burn. It's going to give you a terrible culture, but it might make sense for you to have a churn and burn organization. I'm thinking of some of the large um, distribution networks, right, that we see, where you see the news reports, people using the bathroom in bottles on the floor because they don't want to take the 3 minutes to go use bathroom because it'll hurt the production number, right? Um, you know, if you have that kind of environment and then you have this holiday party where everyone's invited, that's like, to use a very old phrase, putting a lipstick on a pig, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you wipe that lipstick off, it's still going to be a pig. So it just really depends on your culture, and I notice we've gone from holding events to lipstick on pigs, so we're right on track for our normal conversation. So yeah, I mean, those events and how meaningful they are, uh, again, goes back to align with your strategy.
Well, and I'd like to tie, so when we look at it from the for-profit world, and we're talking about like examples of holiday parties and whatnot, so let's look at it from a not, let's flip it back now to nonprofit, right? So let's say you're having an event and in order for your, like you said earlier, red flag for your donors, right? To invite the donors, but the only donors who've donated XYZ, right?
Hmm.
So what does that tell your donors who may only be donating $10 a month,
Yeah, you don't
right?
appreciate them, is what it says.
So how does that impact? Again, is that in line with your purpose?
Well,
And
maybe it does,
strategy,
maybe it doesn't, but it probably doesn't align with your strategy.
that's it, which is supporting the purpose. Because let's say
Yeah.
all those $10 donors are actually the bigger chunk of your donation base rather than the few who donate sizable sums. That could be countering the strategy, which supports the purpose.
Yeah. Particularly when you, on a nonprofit side, when you ask yourself the question, why do my donors contribute, right? And almost sometimes it's I like Tiffany, I'm going to give her organization $15, right? More often than not, it's I care about prostate cancer, I care about children's health, I care about recovering addicts, I care about, and therefore I'm going to give $15 because that's what I can afford, right?
Mhm.
So I would much prefer getting a letter in the mail that says, "Hey, I appreciate your contribution. We were able to help 100 people recover from their addiction this month, or whatever it is."
Yes.
Right? I would be more inclined to pick up the phone and give you more money, or log in than, "Hey, come to my coffee at 9 a.m. for donor appreciation."
And I
Yeah.
think it's also really important to note that as we're talking about this, it's also important to note how culture is shifting and generations are different, right? So at one point, if I'll look at like the baby boomer generation, and with the holiday parties and certain things that were very traditional, it was an expectation. Like that
Hmm.
is what you do. But the younger generations today are going, mm-mm. I like to separate my business and I like to separate my personal. And if I got free time, I want to spend it with my people. I don't need to spend
Yep.
any more time with the work people, right? And they are much more driven by the impact. So, like to your point, if I'm donating money to a nonprofit, I want to get a letter back to know that these dollars, whether it be $10, $15, $100, I want to know how that money impact, what that impact of that money was. Was it to
Yep.
help feed how many families? What did that money do?
Yep. Absolutely. And just to stay on your movie vein, you think about Griswold Family Christmas.
Love that movie.
Oh, what a classic, right? But the expectation by that generation, which is the generation we're in, is that you're going to get a holiday bonus and you're going to have a holiday party.
That's not my generation. Stop that.
Yeah.
I'm a different
Hey,
generation.
hey, 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 calm down.
Typical, the older generation telling the other generation to calm down.
So yeah, at the end of the day, just make sure that your event, and events are good. Just make sure that it is supporting one of your strategic initiatives that are aligned with your purpose.
I like that, and that's how it's a perfect summation to this conversation. And if you are in a position right now where you're going, should we like, and you're evaluating the events that you have been doing, or maybe somebody's got a new event idea and you're trying considering, do we do it? Does this fall in line? Does this help support the purpose? Does it fall in line? And you're like, I really don't think it does. That's okay. Now
Hmm.
you've freed up resources to go, what would? If that's really not the right fit, what would be the right fit? There's so many choices. It's, get those creative juices going. There's other ways to, I don't know why we say skin the cat, Chris. I think at some
I,
point that is
I
such a, like, who did that? That's just
I
horrible.
don't know anybody that's actually skinned a cat,
But
but
they say every cliche has been rooted in truth. So it's like,
yeah, yeah.
what the heck?
I don't know. Maybe they used to think squirrels were cats. I don't know.
Hey, that's a fun podcast for some time. Analysis of all these cliches. Where
All
did
the
they come
cliches.
from?
Yeah, we should actually do an episode on the most prevalent cliches and where they come from. In for a
Is the
penny, in
juice
for a
worth the
pound.
squeeze?
What's that?
Is the juice worth the squeeze? That
Yes.
that does not scare me. Like there's many ways to skin a cat.
Yeah. Much less gruesome.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. Let's everyone stay tuned for the next episode. I'll try, Chris. I think we should try to make it more even more engaging. So we come up with a topic where we're gonna disagree with each other. I think people
Okay, great.
let's do that.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. So thank you everybody for listening to Evolve Together with Empower People. I'm your host, Tiffany Joy Greene, and I got Chris Mayfield here with us. And it's been a pleasure sharing this time with you. We hope today's episode inspired you, provided valuable insights, and empowered you to evaluate where skinning the cat occurred. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Empowered you to take the next step on your purpose-driven journey. Don't forget to connect with us on social media. Share your thoughts. Join our community. You can join for free. And we offer education, connection, support to all those who are purpose driven and have a growth mindset. So until next time, keep evolving, stay empowered, and remember that together we can achieve greatness. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you on the next episode of Evolve Together with Empower People. And I'm going to continue to say this. See you on the flip side. Let's evolve together.